So much of this case just does not make sense. This case has gotten so much media coverage, as well as internet sleuths, Reddit, Facebook groups, you name it. The rumors were flying and are wild. Everyone was and still is speculating about what exactly happened on June 15th, 2021, Summer Wells.
So Summer's parents, Don and Candace, have been the target of threats, accusations that they had something to do with Summer's disappearance. They have denied any involvement. They say that she was abducted. They have passed a polygraph test. At this point, the sheriff is saying anything's on the table. All people are persons of interest. But has the public jumped to conclusions too soon on these parents without the evidence to back this up?
Yeah, I think everybody is innocent till proven guilty for sure. And at this point, there are just, as your reporters, pointed out, Brian, that there's just too many moving parts here. There are a couple of theories that still, need to be nailed down. And obviously the authorities don't have those pieces yet.
Mm-hmm.
Hi guys, I'm Jaylena. Welcome to my channel. I'm so happy that you found your way here. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing and sharing this channel with your fellow true crime lovers. I've had quite a few people reach out and ask if I would cover this case. And after doing a deep dive, I can clearly see why. Summer Wells mysteriously vanished from her family home in a rural area of Hawkins County, Tennessee. She had a shaved head, wearing a pink shirt with gray pants, and she was likely barefoot. There are multiple accounts of what actually happened that day. Summer spent the day with her mom and her grandmother and a family friend, but her mother and this family friend each have contradicting timeline of events, or not necessarily a timeline, but like what actually happened. So this is still an ongoing case and it is pretty wild. Summer Moon Utah Wells was born on February 4th, 2016 to her parents, Don and Candace Wells, in Hawkins County, Tennessee. Summer has 3 older brothers. The family apparently had a pretty decent amount of land, and I mean, we're talking acreage, but their home was pretty small, at least for a family of 6. It was 780 square feet, and if you've ever been in a home even 800 square feet, it's pretty small for 6 people. Candace's mom, who I'll refer to as Grandma Candy throughout this video, so there is no confusion because they are both named Candace. She also lived on the property. She resides in a small trailer just across their driveway, opposite from the main house. Summer's dad, Don Wells, worked as a drywaller for a company called Tucker Drywall, and Candace was a stay-at-home mom. Summer has blonde hair, blue eyes. She's about 3 feet tall and weighs 40 pounds, or at least that was her description the time of her disappearance. People definitely have some thoughts on Summer having a shaved head. Candace claims that Summer wanted to be like her brothers and that she had short hair, and Summer just wanted to be like them. But Dawn says that Summer tried to shave her own head and it didn't go very well, so they just shaved her whole entire head and that they were going to let it grow back long. He says that Candace shaved her head to make Summer feel better, but they also say that it didn't really bother Summer at all. In Dawn's claims, he does say that her hair was getting out of control, and some people have taken this little snippet of what he said as a sign of neglect. Others just assumed maybe she had gotten lice and that's why they had to shave it, but that's all just speculation. It is weird that Summer's parents both had different accounts as to why her head was shaven. I don't understand why they wouldn't have like the same reasoning for it. But I don't know. Just one of the many things that are just slightly odd that stick out. And overall, once you get all of the details, a lot of things like that start to really stick out. And I think that's why people have gravitated toward this case and have so many different theories as to what actually happened, because there are so many small, odd details like that. So let's continue. Summer is said to be a tomboy, but she also enjoys being girly. She loved the movie Frozen and she loved to dance. Her family says that she definitely could hold her own when it came to her brothers and she liked to spend time with them. And on June 15th, 2021, at around 7:30 a.m., Dawn left for work, heading to a work site in Jonesboro, about 30 minutes from Rogersville. That particular day, was a hot one with temperatures reaching about 90 degrees. So Candace decides that she is going to take Summer swimming. But before she could take Summer swimming, Candace has to take Grandma Candy to a doctor's appointment at the Holston Medical Center in Kingsport, Tennessee at 8 a.m. So Grandma Candy has an artificial knee that had been bothering her. And it said that after the family went on a vacation, somehow one of the boys, I'm assuming, accidentally hurt her knee. So while at the doctor's appointment, Candace and Summer were waiting in their car in the parking lot of the hospital. While they're waiting, a family friend calls Candace to see what they're up to, and she tells him what they're up to. They're just hanging out at the hospital waiting for her mom's doctor's appointment to be finished. And so their family friend, who is a 15-year-old boy named Hunter, asks if they want to come over and hang out while they wait. Candace said that they would totally come hang out as long as his mom says that it's okay. Hunter's mom and Candace actually used to be really good friends, but at some point over time, they had some type of falling out. But Candace wanted to keep in touch with Hunter. She says that Hunter was kind of like a son to her, and so she just always kept in touch with him, even though her and his mom were no longer friends. Which, if you think about it, this is not necessarily like a weird thing. Like if my best friend and I had a falling out, but I was really close with her kids, I don't know to what extent I would continue to be in their lives, but I can understand wanting to. But here's the thing. I do feel like this is a little weird to an extent, but it's the little details that we'll talk about in just a bit that makes me feel like this could possibly be somewhat of an inappropriate relationship between Hunter and Candace. So Candace and Summer, according to Hunter, arrive at his house between 10 and 11 a.m. that morning. At some point, Summer apparently changed into her swimsuit while they were at Hunter's house. While there, Candace gets a call that her mom is ready to be picked up. Hunter asks if he can tag along. Candace says, sure, as long as your mom says it's okay. She said it was okay. So Candace, Summer, and Hunter all get into Candace's vehicle and they head back to the hospital to pick up Grandma Candy. On the way, Candace stopped at a smoke shop called the Hippie House. She ran inside to grab some Twisted Teas and some vape pens. And Twisted Teas are just an alcoholic beverage. On the way from the hospital, after picking up Grandma Candy, they stopped at a drive-through pharmacy to fill her mom's prescription. Hunter claims that Candace got a call from Dawn. Candace said that he was just calling to check up on them, to see what they were up to, and Candace says that this is something that he did often. It was not out of the ordinary, and because she was a stay-at-home mom and he worked all day, he would just call in to check on her pretty often. But what's weird here is that though Candy said Dawn just called to check on her and the kids, Hunter claims that Dawn called to talk about a man, an unknown individual that had apparently been camping on their property for up to a week, who had been stalking and touching the kids apparently, which Dawn and Candy have not said anything about that. That as far, like, they're basically saying that didn't happen, that was not said. But that's what Hunter said, which to me, I don't know what motive Hunter would have to lie about this or make it up. But I mean, also again, if that is true, as parents, you would think that would be the person who took Summer, you know. So I don't know why Hunter would make this up, and if he isn't making it up, I don't know why Dawn and Candace would deny that it's true. Just another odd thing here, an odd detail. And there's plenty more odd details to come, so let's continue. Also, another weird detail, Candace claims that her boys were home that day, and when she left all 3 boys at home alone and told them to lock the doors, don't open the doors for anyone, and then they left to go run errands, take their mom to the hospital. But according to Hunter, he says that the boys went to work with Dawn that day. Another, like, why would you make that up, or why would you even, I don't know, like, why is that? It's such a small detail, like, why would one or the other lie about it? And also, at first I thought it was weird that, like, Dawn would take his boys to work with him, but at the same time, he does work construction, and I can totally see him taking his boys. I think they're at the age that that would be okay, that they could go to work with him and help him with some of the things that he has to do, or just hang out. Anyways, while at Walgreens, the pharmacy told them that the prescription would take about 30 minutes to be filled. So Candace decides that she is going to take everyone to a state park to pass the time, and she also knew of a good little spot where she could let Summer go swimming. There was a place that Candace wanted to go to take Summer swimming in Warriors Pass State Park. And while they were at the park, Hunter asks Candace if he could have one of the twisted teas, and Candace gives him a twisted tea. She allows him to drink an alcoholic beverage. A 15-year-old boy who is not her son. She also let him smoke off of her vape pen, which, again, this is a 15-year-old boy, and this is why I kind of feel like their relationship might be a little bit inappropriate. I wouldn't myself allow a child to drink an alcoholic beverage or smoke off of a vape pen, like, they're, especially if they're not my kids. Like, if it was my kid, and, you know, I'm not saying I would, but I know people who do let their kids drink as long as they're, like, at home with their parents versus them sneaking out and going to drink with their friends. They'd rather have that supervised at home with them. But again, that's their kids, not someone else's kids. So definitely questionable one way or the other. So while Summer was swimming, Candace was scrolling through TikTok, and Hunter says that Summer went under the water for about, like, 10 to 15 seconds before he ran into the water to apparently rescue her. And at first, this I kind of found a little sketch, because 15 seconds is not a super long time, especially for kids. Kids do that all the time. Like, they'll see how long they can hold their breath for. And then, you know, the fact that Hunter makes it clear that he was, like, the one that went in to, like, rescue her. But after kind of listening to some of the conspiracy theories, or the theories, or whatever you want to call them, I don't want to get too much into it. I'll touch on why later. But some people speculated that maybe Summer died of dry drowning, which can happen in a very short amount of time, like 15 to 20 seconds or 30 seconds or so. And so we'll get into that another time. But I did find that a little bit sketchy at first, but now thinking about it, maybe it wasn't a sketchy thing. Maybe he really was concerned for Summer's safety, and that's why he went in to make sure that she was okay. Candace did post a TikTok video on her account at about 12:21 p.m. of Summer swimming in the lake. Some of the video also shows Hunter, and there was even a video showing Summer and Hunter splashing each other playfully. So we do know that they were at the park at the time that they said they were. So according to Candace, they were only there for about 20 minutes before Candace decided that it was time to go, because they needed to go back to the pharmacy to pick up Grandma Candy's prescription. On the way to the pharmacy, they stopped again at the hippie house to re-up on some vape pens, and They made it to the pharmacy, and according to Hunter, they stopped at Sonic to get some slushies. Then they stopped at another store to grab some groceries. Summer and Hunter stayed in the car watching TikTok videos. Candace claims that her and Grandma Candy were only in the store for about 5 minutes to pick up milk and cheese. But Hunter goes on to say that they were in the store for about an hour. Another odd discrepancy. Why lie about something so small? Just makes me suspicious. After all said and done, it's about 2 p.m. and they're ready to head home. Candace tells Hunter that he's not allowed to go back to their house with them, and she drops him off at home. After they drop him off, they head back to their house, and on the way, a video of Summer is taken that floored a lot of people. It shows Summer asleep in the back seat, leaning against gallons of milk. People were quick to be extremely concerned by the fact that Summer was not in a car seat, as she should be. And as a new mom who has joined lots of new parenting groups on Facebook, this is a huge topic of debate. All things car seats. So I can definitely imagine how wild people got over this. Candace claims that they arrived at home at about 3:15 p.m. She woke up Summer and they got out of the car. Candace says that they went into the house to get the groceries situated, and her mom went to her trailer to watch TV. Before I continue, I just want to point out that Candace said before that she ran inside the grocery store, was only in there for 5 minutes to just grab milk and cheese. So why even state that she had to go inside to sort out the groceries? Milk and cheese does not take a lot of sorting. You just throw that in the refrigerator. Just another odd detail in my opinion. So Candace says that she did some chores, and about an hour later or so, she goes outside and she sees her mom struggling in the garden. She's trying to transfer plants into bigger pots. So Candace decides that she's going to help her mom, and Summer supposedly was helping them both for about 30 to 50 minutes before she decided she was done and she wanted to go inside and go down to the basement and play with some toys. Candace says that Summer went inside. Candace then started helping her mom with her knee brace that took about 5 minutes or so. After which, Candace says that she goes back inside. She states this was about 5 p.m. And then she starts yelling for Summer, but Summer wasn't responding. So she asks the boys if they know where Summer was, and they said she went down to the basement to play with some toys. Candace and Dawn's room is in the basement, and Summer's room is adjacent to theirs, also in the basement. There was even a podcaster who they allowed to do like a video walkthrough of their house. And in the video, it shows that the door to the basement is actually more like a crawl space. It's super creepy in my opinion. And I feel like you probably wouldn't even know it was there unless you were really trying to look. It looks like there's like even a table over it. I don't know. It's real weird. There's also a door in the basement that leads to outside. So Candace then goes down into the basement to continue to look for Summer, but Summer wasn't there. She was nowhere to be found. Candace then tells her boys to go check a creek that's located on their property to see if Summer was there, and she wasn't. So at this point, Candace calls Dawn. She's freaking out, telling him that Summer's gone and that she can't find her. So Dawn tells her to immediately call 911. Candace hangs up the phone with Dawn, and she goes to get her mom's phone to call the police. People also thought that this was an odd detail that Candace talks about how she was on the phone with Dawn, and she leaves that phone to go get her mom's phone to call 911. Just another odd detail. It's said that after this, Candace drove down to a local church to check if Summer was there at the church, which, if this is true, I personally find it really odd. Why in the world would you think that your daughter is at a church that is at least far enough that you have to drive there, when it had only been like 5 minutes supposedly that Summer went inside and you were 5 minutes behind her. But yet you think she's gonna go walk to this church that you literally had to drive to? To me, it's a little random. I don't understand why she would do that. That's just my personal opinion. Candace says that when she gets back that the police are pulling up her driveway, and this is about 6:30 p.m., which is around the time that Summer was officially reported missing. Don apparently calls the police as well, and he arrives back at his home before the police even get there. He immediately comes to the conclusion that Summer has been kidnapped. I find that odd that he would just immediately jump to that conclusion so fast, but maybe that's just me. Neighbors were already helping search for Summer, and search teams were being organized. Through all the searching done that day, Summer was not found. Candace calls Hunter that night to tell him that Summer is missing, which I would think that the only reason she should be calling him is to see if he's heard from Summer or seen her, but she's just assuming he hasn't, and she's just calling to let him know that she's missing. At around midnight that night, police released an alert for an endangered child. When nothing came up the next morning, they officially put out an Amber Alert for Summer Wells. That morning, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations also held their first press conference about the search, which had come up with nothing. Before I continue, I want to take a second to talk about Summer's parents and her home life. There has been major speculation surrounding Summer's parents' involvement with her disappearance. And to be quite honest, I can very well see why. So let's start with Don Wells, Summer's father. Don has a criminal history that includes multiple felony charges in multiple states, and has even served time for charges such as aggravated assault, among others. On October 14th, 2020, Don was arrested and charged with domestic assault just 8 months before Summer goes missing. That night, Don came home completely inebriated to find another man in his home with his wife, and some type of altercation took place. Don apparently pushes Candace to the ground, causing an injury to her knee before he tries to leave and flee the scene. But he was arrested. Upon arresting him, police did find a pistol in his possession. Candace has said that she is afraid for her safety, the safety of her kids, as well as her mother's safety when it comes to Don. Don does say later in an interview that Candace dropped the charges and she apologized and told the DA that she made a huge mistake. I'm not sure when she dropped the charges, but there is speculation that Don could have threatened to give the police information about what happened to Summer because maybe Candace did in fact have something to do with her disappearance, and that's why she ultimately dropped the charges. But that is all speculation. There is absolutely no proof that that holds any ground. I just want to note here that Candace herself was also charged with domestic abuse in the state of Wisconsin in 2003. I also did watch a video that showed a Facebook post from one of Candace's biological children claiming that Candace was abusive. This video also had some pretty wild information about Candace's sister, who at one point obtained custody of Candace's first two children after her sister called DCS, concerned for their well-being, and then she goes missing and is still missing. I will link that video in the comment section below if you want to dive more into that theory. I do want to also briefly mention here that Don Wells has a 34-year-old son who is also named Don Wells, but his name is Donald Wesley Wells. Donald also has a criminal history as well. He was arrested in Arkansas in 2007 for sexual indecency with a child. Now, with that said, Donald was 19. His girlfriend at the time, who was the victim, was 18 years old. Donald's father, Don Wells, he says that the charges would have been statutory SR, had this occurred in Tennessee. This raised a lot of red flags for a lot of people, but Donald was not in Tennessee when Summer went missing. Also, his girlfriend was 18. I don't know the details of what occurred, but she was 18, which can be confusing because I'm not sure why she was considered a child, but that is not important to this case. So let's go ahead and talk about Summer's home life. Like I said before, the family lived on a pretty decent amount of land and lived in a 780 square foot home shared between 6 people. That is such a small space for that many people. And if you look at Candace's TikTok videos and even the video of the walkthrough posted by that podcaster, you can see that their home was pretty dirty, like extremely noticeably dirty.
Chris, you spent some time there on the family's property. You went inside the house. You went into Summer's room, and you say that it encapsulated her. So I want to show some of this video for folks at home, and I want us to walk through exactly what you saw inside this home.
So this is Candace showing me essentially where the boys were sitting. They were sitting right there at that table, looking at that TV, playing video games. Summer went down into the basement. She's pointing to this, table here that has basically a crawl space into it. And down into that crawl space goes down into the parents' and Summer's room. So I asked her if she would take me down there. She did. And so we crawl through there. This is the way she said Summer went into that basement.
Why did they have it set up like that?
That is a great question. I don't have that answer.
Okay, continue.
So we get down there, and of course, this is Summer's room here that you're seeing. All of the items in the back corner belong to Summer. There's a mattress on the floor, the 2 bunk beds. The windows are secured with reflective type of materials. And so you can tell this is, it's pretty striking pretty quickly for a 5-year-old to be in this environment.
Even the outside of the house was trashy and unkept, which doesn't necessarily mean that her parents are killers. I don't necessarily think the outside having been trashy is that big of a deal. I feel like a lot of people, especially in rural areas, really and truly have a lot of junk sitting around. Let's be honest. But this led a lot of people to believe that there was some level of neglect going on in the household. 2 days after Summer went missing, police held another press conference to address complications that they were having with the search because of the rough terrain and the poor cell service, making it really difficult for them to communicate. Police followed up on more than 50 leads that led to nothing. Police encouraged neighbors in the area to check their trail cams and any surveillance videos that they might have for any clues or information. If you're unfamiliar, a trail cam is a battery-powered camera that is usually motion censored and used for hunting mostly and things of that nature. The quality usually isn't the best, but anything is better than nothing. That day, Candace stopped by Hunter's house around 8:40 p.m. to talk to him. It's unclear why or what they talked about, but the following day, Dawn finally spoke to the press for the first time. Coincidence? Maybe, maybe not. I find it odd. I feel like they were maybe trying to get their story straight. Just my opinion, though. In his statement, he talks about how he knew immediately that Summer was taken. That once he saw his neighbors out there searching, he just knew that she was gone. He then goes on to kind of explain the day's events, like Summer was helping her mom and her grandma in the garden, and then Summer goes inside. Candace goes in after her, yells for Summer. Summer doesn't answer. Candace goes down to the basement. Summer's not there. She's gone. He immediately claims she must have gone out the unlocked basement door and says that they have not seen her since. To me, again, it almost sounds like they were trying to get their story straight before Dawn decided to say anything publicly. On June 22nd, the TBI announced that within just a few days, they searched 4.6 square miles. That's 3,000 acres. I personally spent a summer exploring 1,000 acres, and I can tell you that that is a lot of land. There were over 82 different agencies that were assisting the search for Summer. Police even brought in cadaver dogs that traced Summer's scent from that basement door down through like a trail through the woodsy part of their property to the main road where her scent just stops. And I believe it was that day Candace takes a polygraph and she does pass, which could literally mean nothing. You can't always rely on polygraphs. Dawn also says later at some point that he, Candace, and Grandma Candy all took lie detector tests and that they all passed. But the only one that we know for sure actually did happen was that of Candace that day, and she did pass her polygraph. Police announced that they were looking for a 1998 to 2000 red or maroon Toyota Tacoma pickup truck with a full bed ladder rack and white buckets in the bed of the truck that might have been seen in the area at the time that Summer went missing. No one came forward with any information about this vehicle. This possible lead led nowhere. The Wells family was very cooperative during the entire investigation, and as far as I know, they still are. But due to the lack of findings, police decide to scale back the search for Summer just a week after she went missing. In July, Candace and Dawn's 3 other kids, the boys, were removed from their home. Dawn claims that it's because of the dangers surrounding his house, like trespassers and social media threats against him and his family. I don't believe this at all. I think that there's much more as to why the kids were taken away from them. Dawn was a drunk and he had even been arrested for a DUI. Like I said, he does have a criminal history.
Chris, the other 3 boys, Summer's brothers, were removed from the home, taken into protective custody. Are they key to understanding anything in this case and her disappearance? Is there a chance that they are able to shine some light on what may have happened?
From my opinion as retired investigator, they would be, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And in terms of the parents and their past, that has also been something that is much talked about. Candace filed for an order of protection against her husband, Don, saying that she was afraid of being hurt. She was afraid for those kids. That was likely part of why they were removed from the home. How do investigators take that information and also anything the kids might know and try to piece this puzzle together?
Yeah, Marnie, that's a great question. So, with a 5-year-old child, obviously time is of the essence. So the first officer on the scene quickly wants to assess, who had last contact, what were those conditions in relationship to that contact, how much time has elapsed before the last person saw the child. And so immediately you want to start talking to the parents and you want to try to separate them. And as you go along, trying to get the information initially about the child, then the parent's background becomes significant in relationship to an investigative process as more resources are arriving on the scene.
At this point, the investigation was going nowhere with no leads. A neighbor of Dawn and Candace did make claims that on June 15th, 2021, she heard a loud scream. She said that she saw a car go up the Wells driveway, heard a car door slam, and heard a loud, animalistic scream. But if these claims were true, there's no way that Candace and her mom would have not also seen this car and heard those screams. They were outside in the garden, so I don't necessarily think that there's any validity. Is that how you say that word? I'm not sure that her claims were really even taken seriously by the police. So on October 29th, 2021, Dawn was arrested for a DUI, among other things, and was released just a few days later. And in November of 2021, Candace and Dawn flew to California to make an appearance on the Dr. Phil show. They were interviewed by a panel of 2 body language specialists as well, but as soon as they started asking Candace if she was involved in Summer's disappearance, Candace broke down and walked off camera. Apparently, she does this because before going on the show, she agreed that if anyone tries to interrogate her, she would leave, which, why couldn't she just say no? If you are innocent and you want to bring your child back because you believe that someone has taken her, this is the perfect opportunity to say, no, I wasn't involved, but if you're watching, if you have my daughter, like, bring her home. I just feel like the fact that she felt like she was being intimidated by a simple question that she could have simply said, no, I wasn't involved. This, was triggering her, which these 2 body language experts claim that both Dawn and Candace displayed guilty body language. When they asked Candace what she thought should happen to the person who took Summer, assuming that she really did get kidnapped, Candace closed her eyes and paused, which showed a classic example of blocking or escaping according to the body language experts. Candace and Dawn were asked if they thought the Cornbread Mafia was involved, and with this question, Candace broke down into tears. So, the Cornbread Mafia was the name for a group of Kentucky men who created the largest domestic marijuana production operation in United States history. It is based in Marion, Nelson, and Washington counties in central Kentucky. The term Cornbread Mafia was first used in public by federal prosecutors in a June 1989 press conference where they revealed that 70 men had been arrested for organizing a marijuana trafficking ring that stretched across 30 farms in 10 states, stretching from southeast into Midwest. The story was first reported in the Courier-Journal magazine in Louisville, Kentucky on October 8, 1989, and then in 2012, in the narrative nonfiction book, The Cornbread Mafia, a homegrown syndicates code of science and the biggest marijuana bust in American history. That definition goes on to say other things, obviously. I'm not quite sure why this was such a big deal. I know Dawn does talk a lot about believing that gangs were involved. I personally don't think that is the case, but I don't know. We don't know if any of that is true or really connected for sure. Before Dawn could even attempt to answer this question, Candace interrupted by saying, "Get these wires off of me," and then she proceeded to try and take the wires and the microphone off of her jacket, then saying that she wanted out and claimed that she was being interrogated again. The experts claim that this was insinuating and running. So all of this is really interesting, but this is the Dr. Phil show, and it is made for entertainment. Yes, those 2 body language experts are experts, but it doesn't mean that Candace or Dawn are guilty. Dawn does wind up spending several months in jail, and he writes multiple letters to whomever he believes took Summer, as well as to Summer herself. I'm not going to read these letters on this video, but a quick Google search will take you to the letters. I personally don't feel like they really give any insight. I think that I'm not really sure what to think of the letters, or Dawn and Candace's behavior just overall in a general sense. Dawn has been released from jail and is posting on Facebook as of January 2023. Summer is still missing, and there is so much to this case that is just utterly questionable. There are so many theories and so much speculation surrounding this case and whether or not Dawn and Candace were involved. The public was so incredibly taken by this case, it kind of caused a frenzy. So many podcasts and YouTube videos and just social media posts in general were coming out with information, and the police were getting thousands of tips, and they have to look into every lead. They eventually did ask people not to call in tips based off these social media posts and videos, which is truly wild if you think about it, that so much is happening and so many people are so invested so deeply into this case of Summer Wells. We still don't know what happened to her, and I really do hope and pray that we get some answers soon. But that's really all that we can do right now. That is going to be it for this case this week. But this Friday, January 27th at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, myself and Lindsay from the channel Into the Mist will be doing a live chat to discuss the different theories and some of the speculation as well as conspiracy theories that are surrounding this case. Lindsay recently did a video on Summer's case as well, which I will link in the description below if you want to check that out and show her some love. We are really looking forward to chatting with all of you and hearing your thoughts on this case. So make sure that you hit the notification bell so that you don't miss out on that discussion, because we do want to hear from you. And as always, leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you so very much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you, and I'm sending you all the love and the good vibes. Until next time, you guys. Thanks again. I will see you then.